the balance of your height to your shape matters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where a lot of clothing that people try to pass off for tall clothing doesn't fit properly, is they're using the regular sizes based off 5'9", and they're trying to just extend the legs or extend the sleeve.
Yes.
And ultimately, the body doesn't work that way.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of From One Height Goddess to Another. It's Lamika, creator and founder of Height Goddess. I'm so glad to be back. And actually, now that I'm back, I actually brought on Team Height Goddess. And so the next couple interviews are going to be from everyone that's on the team. We're a small team, but we're a mighty team. And so I thought I would start it off by bringing on Callie. Callie is the person that gives us the fit in the style that we want for a garment for tall women. So Callie, welcome to From One Height Goddess to Another. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely. You know, everybody's always asked, like, who's a part of your team? How do you guys make it happen? So I thought, let's go ahead and have this conversation. So before we get started, Callie, tell us how tall you are and did you play a sport?
I am 5'9", and I have played just about every sport there is. Basketball, volleyball, softball, track. I was a cheerleader. I did it all.
Oh, that's great. So you get to answer the question like, yes, I did play whatever sport you're going to ask me about.
Yes. Fill in the blank.
Exactly. So Height Goddess, not only do we make great clothing for tall women, but pretty much everybody on the team is an actual Height Goddess. That was not by design. That's just how things have happened. So Callie's going to kick it off with telling us how we get the fit in the style we want. So when I created Height Goddess now 13 years ago, you know, I created it because I was not able to find style and fit in a garment, or it was, you know, a men's garment, having to tailor it, that kind of thing. And so, you know, with Callie, she helps us get that. But before we get into that, I want to find out, since Callie is a Height Goddess, I want to find out, you know, what was life like for you growing up as a tall girl?
I don't think that I realized I was tall. I don't think I was particularly tall as a kid. And maybe it's just because the women and most of the men in my family are so tall. So I felt very small in comparison to everyone.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't until I joined the military, then they started lining me up against my peers, both male and female. And I'm like, I'm on the wrong end of this group of people. Like, how'd I end up here? So yeah, it was at that point that I realized that I was much taller than the average woman and taller than a lot of males.
Yes. Yes. So you grew up in a tall family. So mom and dad are tall?
Yep. Mom and dad are tall. Pretty much all the women. I'm like the short one in my family.
Wow.
All the women are like 6 foot. So
she clearly gets what it means to not be able to find clothing that fits.
Yes, absolutely.
That is a great thing. You said you didn't really realize it till you got to the military. So being with a tall family, I know for me, because everyone was tall, for me, it was the norm. So with that, did you love your height? Was it something you ever even paid attention to, or?
I didn't really pay attention to it until the military. One, because the uniforms were weird. And clearly military uniforms are not designed for women in general. I was in almost 100% male-dominated field anyways, so having any sort of physical assets was not desired to be highlighted in any way.
Yeah, that's definitely true. That's got to be you're taller and definitely stand out in so many ways.
Yeah, so it was interesting to try to make all of that work. And I essentially I didn't have a wardrobe. Like I had uniforms. Like that's all I wore.
So did you have to make adjustments to your uniform, or is there a male uniform and a female uniform, or?
There's supposed to be. So at the time that I served is when the military, towards the end of my career, is when the military was transitioning to what they now have as their newer uniforms, the different desert prints and different boots. And even before I had any goals or aspirations of getting into the fashion industry, I actually helped out in testing those uniforms and doing the data, because my career field was one of the major career fields that they needed to test uniforms and boots and all these things to make sure they worked. One is because we destroyed our uniforms at an astronomical rate versus other fields.
Wow.
And then the boots also, because we damaged our boots constantly. And you have two main areas, because I worked in the civil engineering field. So we're on top of buildings, we're pouring concrete, doing all sorts of crazy things. But between that and the flight line, we have the hottest temperatures that we're standing on. And what we found is that the early testing of the boot soles were actually melting to the asphalt and to these things. In the uniforms, we were testing fit, and that's where they were kind of redefining and able to give input on sizing, because height, weight, body type, gender, all of those things matter whenever you're wearing a uniform.
Very much so.
So for me, it used to be back in the day that you had to do what you call blousing your BDUs. And they were always too short. Like, they would come unbloused constantly, and they're like, why are you walking around like that? I'm like, it ain't my fault. Like, they're on my calves, they're not on my ankles. I don't know what to do.
Right. You don't have what I need. But that's pretty cool to be a part of that. So how far in that process were you able to get with that?
So we did, at the base that I was at, we essentially did a segment of it. I helped with the distribution into different fields. Myself and some other people in our unit actually wore the items. I did the data entry on it. So that was one area where I really got to see and learn fit in different body types, whether I knew that's what I was learning or not. And then, of course, application, which really matters in any design. Is it working the way you need it to work for the group of people you need it to work for?
Right. And that makes total sense. So leading into that, stepping over to being a tall woman and making sure with that experience, but now also being an actual implementing that from a fashion standpoint. People ask me all the time, can you guys do a plus size? Can you do this? Can you do that? Tell them what goes into just getting what we have.
So the ability to put all things into one design is just not possible. There's a reason why there's 500 versions of a phone, because there's just no way to get it all in one. But in the simplest terms, you start out with your height and a particular body style. Those two things coming together. So in the 50s, the military developed what is now considered standardized sizing, which is based on 5'9" and an hourglass shape, but it's the 1950s shape. So this is like what we would consider a 0-2 in today's market.
Wow. Wait, so the original standard was based off of someone who was 5'9"?
Yes. And it was developed in the military. So the military is the one who actually refined how pattern makers pattern today.
Wow.
So that's where you get your women's, I don't like saying like regular sizing and some of the terms that they use, standardized sizing, because really it's no longer a standard, but we'll just say women's regular sizing, what you typically see in the market from 0 to about a size 10, 12. So those measurements are based off 5'9" and have anywhere from a 1 to a 2-inch grade. And the grade is the measurement in between the sizes.
Okay. So
in starting any company or determining any sizing, you're determining what your body shape is. When you do plus size, you're immediately out of the hourglass shape, because the sheer numbers of how many women who are in plus size that still have an hourglass shape is very small, probably around 4%, I would guess. So then you get into different body shapes like pear, oval, rectangular. So all of that standardization goes out the window. And then you to design for that subsection. So that's why you can't take a regular regular
right.
sizing and just add in the plus size, because the shape in which it's built off of is not the same thing.
Okay.
So the balance of your height to your shape matters.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where a lot of clothing that people try to pass off for tall clothing doesn't fit properly, is they're using the regular sizes based off 5'9", and they're trying to just extend the legs or extend the sleeve.
Yes.
And ultimately, the body doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to split up that body both vertically and horizontally to balance it out and give that extra room in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that they're skipping.
Mm-hmm.
So based off your height and your body shape, which translates to whatever your width is and your width balance, that is how you get a proper fit. So on someone who's 6 foot, your torso needs to be extended those extra inches. And then you can start to set your width. And then you can make changes for body type. So one, just in height, you have to pattern differently. Your very basis of where you start happens at a different point. And then your width has to be set up for whoever your customer is. So if you're designing for women who are about a size 14 or under, it's going to be based off of an hourglass shape. If you're designing for above that, you kind of have to pick a category, but most tend to land in the rectangular category, and then they figure out how to create balance.
Okay.
But making the two work in one does not happen.
Does not happen. And so the development behind it, and I think a lot of people just see, obviously, they don't know the inner workings. And so they just see the end result and they think it's something that you can simply do. You know, like I said, I created Height Goddess because as a tall woman, I wasn't able to find it. And I am not a size 8. I'm not a size 10. So people always say you need to do plus size. I mean, I'm on the higher end of the spectrum for Height Goddess. You know, while I get that there is a plus size tall woman out there, you know, it's just one of those things that's difficult to be able to manage both of them because there's development, and development can be very expensive. And so, you know, for Height Goddess, we prefer to perfect our core market and then extend out. So what we do is I show Callie the designs I want. And she's like, well, we can do this, but you got to do this, you got to do that. So we take into account, you know, all those things. Because, you know, the one thing about a tall woman, I know for me, when I've shopped other brands, when I found something that fit, I bought and I bought and I bought. And that's what I want for tall women when they come to Height Goddess, is be able to know that this brand has been made specifically for you. Callie and I and the rest of the team, we make sure that when we're going over a garment, we're thinking about all of that. So Callie, can you share with them from the time I give you my idea to actually something that is, I can see, like, what that process is like?
Well, once we have the general concept, then the design has to be applied to sizing so we can get the right balance. Because as you could imagine, like if you have something gathered at the waist, but you want to drop the waist 3 inches, it's going to make a torso look really awkward. So even in like the best ideas and the best design concepts, ultimately it has to come out is this functional with your target market? Is it functional in their lifestyle? Can it be done at the price point that you want it to be done? And is it going to look good?
Right.
Like longevity, consumer longevity, is it going to look good? And we do talk many times about what's going to happen after you wash this 50 times.
Right.
Like, is this still going to look good?
Exactly.
Because that is important to your brand. It's important that they can wear this item repeatedly and it have longevity, and it still looks good at wash 50 as it did at wash 1.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, that's always the goal. And so bringing in that style and that fit. That's what we want people to do that. Now, I come up with some crazy ideas and she's like, no, that's not it. But here's how we can do that. So that helps out a whole lot. All right. So is there anything else we need to share with them on how we make sure we have a great fitting garment?
Understanding, it's kind of two-part. One, your ability to understand who your consumers are and how you apply those designs to them. But the other side of that is on your consumer base. They need to know their body. They need to understand, especially when you're tall, you need to know how you're tall. So if you're tall by having a proportionate body, or you probably have learned that certain designs are going to look better on you than others. Mm-hmm. If you have a longer torso, then you need to know that so you can maximize particular looks and particular styles. Because in your entire portfolio of designs that you design for your consumers, that balance of addressing those body types within your segment is the best way to help them. Mm-hmm. And then they, understanding their bodies, can choose the best designs for them out of that. Right. And so it's a kind of a 50-50. The two have to work together.
Right.
And my part in that is making sure that anytime a design is being done, that I'm taking into consideration all those potential balances mm-hmm. to get the design to best represent as many people as it's appropriately necessary to represent with that design.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I've never had my team on before. And so I thought this is a perfect time to be able to share information so that we give an insight into how things run and how we make Hype Goddess go. So I appreciate Callie taking the time out because we are working on fall and we have some amazing things that I'm excited about. Designs that we've had before that we've perfected and they fit even better. But before we go, Callie, what's your fashion style? Or what do you like to wear?
What I actually wear daily versus my actual style is like I have an alter ego out there.
Right.
If I had the lifestyle, I would be wearing probably 50s Parisian outfits.
Nice.
So, I don't know.
So I see a scarf in there. Is a scarf involved in this?
Yes. So I don't know. I just love the 50s style, especially the more higher end looks from the 50s. I don't know why. I just think it's beautiful. But what I wear every day is jeans, t-shirts, pretty much.
Right. That makes all of us pretty much, especially now that we're having to social distance. It's gotten even further down from a style perspective.
Yes, absolutely. But in my defense, I spent like the first decade of my life wearing a uniform.
That's true.
So I never had to think about what I was going to wear every day.
That makes total sense. That reminds me of my private school days when I had a uniform. And then when I went to public school, I'm like, wait a minute, maybe I need to go back to private school because this is too much. This is too much to think about. So right. I get it. So guys, let us know what you think. Callie, share with us how we make Hype Goddess products. Hype Goddess garments fit you great. And we're just working to continue to perfect it. So any feedback, we'd love, for you to share that with us. But check us out at hypegoddess.com. And again, I'll be sharing more of the Hype Goddess team with you guys so that you can just get a behind the scenes on what it takes to bring tall women clothing that fits and has style with it, a timeless style with it. So until the next time, I thank you for listening. And Callie, thank you for coming on today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
So you guys can find us at hypegoddess.com. We love for you to give us a review on Apple or wherever you listen to your podcast. So until next time, have a great one and we'll talk with you later.